For the first time since the 2020 Big Ten Championship game, the Ohio State Buckeyes and Northwestern Wildcats will meet on the football field, and we are here. Myself, Jay Stevens, and Carter Byrd of Locked On Northwestern to break down the game between these two schools on Saturday afternoon. This is the Locked On crossover featuring Locked On Buckeyes and Locked On Northwestern, breaking down, predicting, discussing what's going to happen when the Wildcats and Buckeyes meet on the football field. This Locked On crossover is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Some of you watching on YouTube see Carter's laugh when I talk about these two teams meeting and what could possibly happen. Carter, normally when I start off and I start to feature a host of a different show, and I want to find out things about them and their school that they cover and the story of that team, normally everybody has a different story. Iowa's interesting. The record says one thing, but the football says something a little bit different. Well, Northwestern, I miswrote things down on my paper. You're 1-7. Mm-hmm. To me, that says Northwestern is a bad football team, but I think the story of the team might be even worse than what the record says.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been a really, really rough year. You had that week 0 game in Dublin against Nebraska as 2-score underdogs. Northwestern comes back, pulls the upset. I think they were down, I believe, 11 there in the second half, came back and won the game. And all of a sudden, you kind of talked yourself into, hey, there's a path to a hot start here. You had that Nebraska game, you had Duke, you had Southern Illinois, and then you had, I believe it was Miami of Ohio. There was a path to 4-0. At least I thought after coming off that game, because, as happens every year, Nebraska gets the hype, and they kind of they become everybody's off-season darling, and then, turns out they're not very good, and Northwestern fell off a cliff there pretty quickly when they had that week 2 game against Duke, dug a hole again, lost that one, and then really the moment where you thought, something might be really, really bad here was when Ryan Helinski, who had played really well through the first 2 games, went against an FCS defense in Southern Illinois that was allowing 380 passing yards a game to that point through their first 2 games, and looked rattled and uncomfortable, and only threw for like 213 yards and threw multiple picks, and you end up losing that game. And that was the first moment where I was like, oh boy, this could get really bad. And sure enough, they've rattled off 7 straight losses here, and things are not great when you're coming off a game last week where you give up 33 points or 31 points rather to Iowa's offense, which, as we all know, is really, really, really bad.
You mentioned something pre-show about a little note about Northwestern, which might describe some of the struggles they're having this year on the football field. It dates back to 2020 and how the school handled the COVID. Could you kind of break that down, discuss that with the listeners and viewers? Because that gives, I think, everyone, no matter if it's a Northwestern fan or an Ohio State fan or just a casual viewer trying to see what's going on with this game, it gives everyone a great insight into what this football program has been dealing with over the past 2 years.
Yeah, I think being a private school, kind of dealing with their own set of rules that they set rather than, I guess, a public institution in some of these other states. The pandemic, COVID, was handled very probably more stringently, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It was a little bit more locked down than other places. We obviously know that Northwestern won the Big Ten West in 2020, went and played in that Big Ten championship game and fell short in that one. But because of the rules set forth by the school, the team was not allowed to get into their weight room and work out and get in the meeting room together and have typical team meetings until this past offseason. And I think that combined with, the experience losses off that 2020 team and how young these past couple teams have been, it paints a picture of of a team that has had some challenges that I'm not sure everybody else in the Big Ten has had to go through. And I think it's a large reason why the fall off has been so dramatic. And I mean, they've won 4 games since that 2020 season.
A week ago, I believe it was a week ago, if my dates are correct. Yes, a week ago, actually a few days ago now, Northwestern went on the road to Iowa. And as Ohio State fans realized, when you play Iowa, their offense is atrocious. It's bad. Iowa switched quarterbacks, not because of a blowout, just because their starter, Spencer Petras, could not get the job done. Alex Padilla comes in against Ohio State. First play is a fumble snap. First play jitters, were the nervous about the Ohio State defense, possibly all of the above. But when Northwestern plays Iowa scores 33 points. That shocked me. That's odd. I know the defense probably scored some, but allowing the Hawkeyes to score 33 points kind of opened some eyes to see how bad this Northwestern defense is right now.
Yeah, I mean, they've had moments where I think they've played well, but really, the more you watch them, the more you realize that there's just not a ton of depth. The secondary was supposed to be a strength, but there's not a lot of depth there. And pretty much from the word go this season, you've seen that unit get banged up, and they've dealt with injuries. Second level lacks speed and athleticism, and they get kind of, when teams get to the edge on them, they struggle to keep up with other teams' speed. But yeah, that Iowa game definitely opened some eyes for sure around the conference with just how bad Northwestern's defense could end up being. Iowa was averaging, I think, 227 yards of offense a game going in. And in the first half against Northwestern had 252 yards of offense, which is awful. And Spencer Petras, who's, I think I legitimately had been saying I thought he was probably a bottom 5 quarterback in college football this year. Northwestern made him look competent. I mean, he was 21 of 30, 220 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. I mean, pretty decent game, all things considered. I mean, it's not going to blow anybody away when you look at other quarterbacks around the country, but that's seems to be by far his best game of the year. And that's really all he had to do, because Iowa dominated Northwestern up front, created running lanes for their running backs. They ran for 178 yards, which is, I mean, they threw and ran for way above their averages on the season, and really just took it to a Northwestern team that I think was a little shell shocked by how quickly Iowa jumped on them. Iowa scored on 7 of their 8 drives in that game, which is something you probably won't hear again about Iowa's offense this year.
Last thing for you, Carter. When it comes to Pat Fitzgerald, there's a toughness, there's a mentality that I believe a player or two might get and pick up from their head coach. Who on this team do you think embodies, or you could say is kind of Pat Fitzgerald on the football field?
Well, I mean, I would turn to Adetomiwa Adebawore, the defensive end, who actually made I think it was.
Let me just stop you really quick. You said that so well. I practiced trying to say that name prior to doing this show. I couldn't get it. I got to give you a hand clap publicly. That was a good job.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been one that I've had some practice saying for sure. It's the last name you would think with the way it's spelled is like Adebawore, but it's Adebawore. But he's kind of one of the senior leaders on this defense at defensive end. Captain on the team. I think he made Bruce Feldman's freaks list preseason. He maybe hasn't had quite the production that you would like out of him, but he's somebody I would look at. Then you've got Bryce Gallagher at linebacker, another Gallagher brother on this defense. He's another captain on this team up the middle, and he's somebody who has that toughness, but he's in that second level. He's another one of those guys that, can have the athleticism and the speed disadvantage exposed by teams. And then, on the back end, there's not been a lot on the that's a lot of people who've been healthy enough. I would say Cam Mitchell. On offense, Peter Skoronski. I mean, he is the first round draft pick, first tackle that's going to be taken in this draft. And when you look at his Pro Football Focus numbers this year, they've been really, really good. And then I would also highlight Evan Hull. Evan Hull, he is the offense. He is he was on a just stupid pace to start the season. He had well over 100 yards and probably 30, 40 yards receiving against Nebraska. And then against Duke, he only had 75 yards rushing, but he had 14 receptions for 213 yards in that game. So video game numbers. At one point, he was on pace to post the first ever 1,000-yard rushing and 1,000-yard receiving season by an FBS player ever. But it's been tough sledding here recently as the defenses have gotten better, and you've seen some of these teams. It's been tough on the ground, but he's somebody to keep an eye on. Whether it be running the ball, he's going to have the biggest impact. He also might catch the most balls in this game for Northwestern's offense. Those would be the guys that I would highlight for sure.
We have heard the Northwestern side from some things that have made the season rough for them to some players that are somewhat of a Pat Fitzgerald on the football field. Next up is all about the Ohio State Buckeyes. Gus Johnson calls them world famous. I don't normally say that on the show, but I will right now. What also is world famous, or at least famous by some, is Simply Safe. Did you know that over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries and package thefts spike nationally? That's why our friends at Simply Safe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Order your Simply Safe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. Here's why I love it. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real so you can get priority police response. Simply Safe is whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs less than $1 per day. Less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. With the top-rated Simply Safe app, stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere, arm or disarm, unlock for a guest, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/URL today. This is their biggest discount of the year. So don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnCollege. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Thanks for making Locked On crossover your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your fine podcast. I am done talking. Carter Byrd, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, I mean, I know that we are going to get into Ohio State's offense because it has to be the dominating storyline. But I want to start and talk about this Ohio State defense. I guess under year one of the new defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles. What have you seen from this defense so far this year? What improvements have there been? Because it seems to me that this defense has improved from last year to this year.
It's been a big improvement. You mentioned some things that I have seen, and I could go on for a list for days, literally 30, 45 minutes. We can go back and forth. And I could just throw out different nuggets about different things that are different from this year versus last year. But ultimately, in the offseason, the players quickly bought in. I emphasize the word quickly because they quickly bought into what Jim Knowles was preaching in spring practice, worked on those things, had almost all the defense installed prior to the season starting, which of course is going to be every team because you're always adding things, adding wrinkles as the season goes on. But everybody's more disciplined this year. And I think it's a big thing compared to last year. And I'm not going to knock any of the coaches from last year and say they're bad coaches. I'm just going to say they did a poor job of teaching and helping the players be disciplined in their job. Also, go into that, you have more experienced players. And as football fans, basketball fans, sports fans know, if you're more experienced in something and you're devoted and you're working on getting better at your craft, you have a good teacher that can help you get better at your craft, you're going to be better simply because a lot of the times experience is a great teacher in and of itself. And so disciplined, getting some new coaches in there. I mean, almost the entire coaching staff on defense is different. The only guy that stayed is Larry Johnson, the D-line coach. Jim Knowles is new D coordinator, new linebackers coach. Then you have Tim Walton and Perry Iliano literally splitting the DB room in half between safeties and corners. And so I think that's a big thing as well, where you don't have corners consistently hearing safety stuff and doing safety stuff or vice versa. Those positions, they can go hand in hand at times, but there's a lot of differences between being a single high safety and being on an island against the other team's number one receiver. So that's a lot that could keep going, but it's a lot of differences in the players on the field. They were sponges in the offseason, and they're playing good football in 2022.
Well, I want to highlight, I guess, we were talking before the show, somebody who had their breakout game last week. What did you see I'm going to try to get his last name right, and I'm trying to recall how you taught me how it's said, but JT Tua Maluau? Tui Maluau. Ah, there it is.
Tough.
Well, okay, well, he had his breakout game last week. He had, I mean, obviously the 2 interceptions, the pick 6, the multiple sacks. I mean, it was one of the most ridiculous performances I've ever seen by a college defensive player. Is this the breakout game, and should we expect to see more of that moving forward, and even on Saturday?
Yes, you should expect to see more of that on Saturday. You got to see him be in a 2-point stance, more off the line, and as a linebacker, walked up on the line, dropped back into coverage, was behind the running back, moved up in front of the running back. Sean Clifford didn't see him. He got the interception. And I said in the offseason, I highlight that play on purpose, because I said in the offseason, as I was reviewing Jim Knowles' defense and the 4-2-5 kind of 3-3-5 look he's going to be bringing without bringing a third linebacker on the field, people were saying Jack Sawyer's going to be the guy. He can be in the 2-point stance, be all over the place. And I went back to JT Tuimoloau's high school film. I saw him do some of the same things in high school that he's going to be asked to do in this new defense. And I said, this is him. I get he's the heftier guy. I get like his build is different. His profile is different. But this defense is perfect for him. And I think you're going to see more of that going forward. The first half of the season, the refs did not call the holdings that players are doing all the time. And as soon as he finds ways to not be held, dude, I'm not going to say he's unstoppable, because I don't want to go that far just yet. He has a lot of football left to play in college before going to the National Football League. But he can be somebody that can be a Chase Young on the field, different skill sets, but can be a Chase Young-esque, a Joey Bosa-esque, Nick Bosa-esque player, to where he might be someone that you have to scheme 2 and 3 offensive linemen or 2 or 3 players on offense to come at him every play. Because if you don't, I don't know if there's an offensive tackle next year that can guard this guy if he keeps getting better and improving at the clip that he's currently going at.
Yeah, I mean, he's really had that game. Just watching it on Saturday, it was nuts to watch the impact and watch him just wreck that game. Kind of around the rest of the defense, who are, I guess, some more under the radar names to keep an eye on in this game on Saturday.
You say under the radar, so I will not go to the typical guys there. Buckeye fans will be like, why aren't you mentioning Tommy Eichenberg? Well, he's up for an award as one of the better linebackers in the country. Not really under the radar. Tanner McAllister, though. Got to highlight Tanner McAllister. He's a transfer from Oklahoma State, came over with Jim Knowles, his old D coordinator, now his current D coordinator still in college football. And he's kind of been like a glue guy for the secondary. He knows the defense. He knows his role. And I think in the offseason, he was pivotal to guys like Ronnie Hickman, Lathan Ransom, Josh Proctor, being guys that quickly learn their role. on defense, and Tanner McAllister was kind of that guy. A guy who, to me, is the best, one of the better, probably second best D lineman, maybe best D lineman, not D lineman, depending on who you talk to. That's not getting a lot of run right now. It's Mike Hall, D tackle, kind of an undersized guy early in the season. Some of his teammates and oppressors said they call him Baby Aaron Donald. Now, we haven't seen enough of him this year to say he is Baby Aaron Donald because he's been hurt. He's been on a pitch count. But if Mike Hall gets let loose this week against Northwestern, I'm going to say it. It's going to be ugly for the Wildcats in Evan Hall as he's trying to move the ball and be the biggest piece of the Northwestern Wildcats offense. Mike Hall is the dog. D tackle. I'll just highlight those two guys, Tanner McAllister, Mike Hall. Guys that Zach Harrison, JT Tuimoloau, Lathan Ransom, Tommy Eichenberg, they'll get more of the attention, but Tanner McAllister, a glue guy. Mike Hall, still one of the better guys on defense who has not played a lot lately due to injury. Those two guys, man, if they get let loose this weekend, watch out.
Moving to the other side of the ball, I mean, obviously, CJ Stroud is the odds-on Heisman favorite. I mean, how has he looked this year as opposed to previous years? And I mean, is this his Heisman Trophy to lose at this point, or are we going to see somebody like a Hendon Hooker at Tennessee maybe overtake him down the stretch here?
Here's how I view this whole Hendon Hooker, CJ Stroud type of thing. I wasn't planning on doing this today, but Carter opened the door, and Jay's going to walk right through it. So every year we say a quarterback, based off how the voters do things, they have a Heisman moment. Now, for Joe Burrow, it was the entire season, but for some guys, they have a Heisman moment literally in the season, end of October, early November, Heisman moment. We talk about it, all that stuff. Well, CJ Stroud's Heisman moment may have been against Penn State in that fourth quarter, where it seemed like he was just flawless. Once the Buckeyes went up tempo, all of a sudden, Penn State couldn't do anything. Add in JT Tuimoloau's pick six and strip sack. It was just a whirlwind that was fun to watch as a Buckeyes fan. After that game, though, some sports books had Hendon Hooker as the favorite to win the Heisman. And I think CJ Stroud is the better quarterback. I think Hendon Hooker's having the better season. Of course, you're at Tennessee. Shiny new toy to some people. You want Tennessee to get back, and Tennessee is playing really good football. So I think Stroud's a better quarterback. I think he's playing the best ball he's ever played at Ohio State. And if he's locked in like he was in the fourth quarter this week against Northwestern, he might only play the first half. You might see the second string quarterback the third quarter, the third string quarterback the fourth quarter. Because Stroud, when he's locked in and the tempo is flowing, you can't stop him and Emeka Egbuka or Marvin Harrison Jr. or Julian Fleming or Cade Stover. You can't stop those connections. I don't think anybody in the country can stop those connections. So I said the Heisman moment earlier because I do believe Stroud and what he did in the fourth quarter is a Heisman-esque moment that he's going to need if he wants to win the trophy at the end of the season. It's just weird that after that moment, all of a sudden, Hendon Hooker goes to the top of numerous sports books as the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman. I said before the season, Stroud would win the Heisman. I'm starting to back off of that train because I see how Hendon Hooker and that Tennessee Volunteer train has picked up speed of late.
So as you look around the rest of this offense, I mean, there's guys making plays everywhere. There's big names, stars everywhere. I mean, even Ohio State's not even at full strength right now on the offensive side of the ball. Do we see a lot of hardware come home with Ohio State at the end of the season? And is there really anybody that can stop this offense?
Hardware, yes. I do believe there will be numerous players that win postseason awards. You have a safety in Lathan Ransom who's a semifinalist for the Thorpe Award. I believe JT Tuimoloau was up for a finalist for one of the defensive lineman awards. Tommy Eichenberg is up for a postseason award as a linebacker. There's going to be numerous All-Americans on both sides of the ball. Stroud will be in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. We'll see how the next few weeks go before I say if he will definitively win it or if he will not. But yes, hardware will be one. I do believe they'll win the Big Ten championship. I'm not backing off of the Buckeyes winning the Natty in 2022. People are locked on, people that are on the socials. I know you're probably listening. Go ahead, cut it up. Put it on the Twitter. Say Jay said this. I don't care. I've said it before the season. I'll say it again. I think the Buckeyes are going to win the Natty. Like I said, Carter's opening doors for me to just walk right through it. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. But yeah, I do think they'll bring home hardware. And I think the month of November is pivotal. And I think Ryan Day is going to use the initial CFP ranking as the Buckeyes being number 2 in the country, even though they've been probably the most dominant team in the country, and their defense has been elite, their offense has been elite. They're still number 2 based off resume. I understand that. I think Ryan Day and these coaches are going to use that as fuel. And I feel sorry for the Wildcats because I think the Buckeye train is going to roll through Evanston, Illinois, and really remind people who Ohio State is. And when they're playing a lesser opponent, that lesser opponent should not be successful and probably would not be successful on the football field.
So I'm not expecting Northwestern's defense to stop this offense, but yeah. I mean, as the season kind of goes along here, there is that matchup at the end of the year with Michigan, and there is a Big Ten championship game and potentially a Big Ten championship game and potentially a playoff appearance. Is anybody actually capable of stopping this Ohio State team, or at least limiting the offense and giving them a real test for the full 60 minutes right now?
Well, you saw that for about, what's that, 30, 45, 46, 48 minutes a week ago. And then CJ Stroud, well, about 50 minutes, Stroud just went off. So we literally saw a week ago a team that seemed like they stopped the Buckeyes. It wasn't just slowing down the Buckeyes. It seemed like they stopped the Buckeyes. And then Ohio State did something special, really special, a week ago in the fourth quarter against Penn State. Maybe Georgia. I don't think Tennessee's defense is good enough to stop them or even slow them down. I think it'll be more of the Alabama-Tennessee game where it's you score, I score, back and forth type of high-scoring affair. I really think it might be Georgia. And if the Wolverines are able to control the clock and time of possession with their running game, that might be the best option there as well. I don't think Tennessee will control the time of possession if they play Ohio State, which is in the Buckeyes' favor, I do believe. But honestly, I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. The Wolverines or Georgia. I think those are the two schools. I won't say they can stop them because this offense is, I think, too good. But even if you slow down the Buckeyes' running game, which Penn State did a week ago, Ohio State still has a Heisman-worthy candidate in C.J. Stroud and a guy who could win a receiver award, Blutnikoff and Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, they still have all these weapons out there. The only option is slow down the running game. Stop it. They didn't work a week ago. I don't know if it'll work against Georgia, Tennessee, or the team up north. Those things are to be determined.
Well, yeah, it remains to be seen if anybody can really stop this Ohio State team. Well, kind of with that, we have some friends that want to help you stop sweating, and that is our friends at Sweatblock. Look, as a larger guy, I mean, I've always had issues with sweating. No one wants to be that person that's, out in public that's pitting, and it becomes something that you worry about when you leave the house. But thankfully, I found Sweatblock, our friends here at the Locked On Podcast Network, and I no longer have that issue. All the kind of anxiety of it kind of fades away as well. Sweatblock was created by a doctor to help with his own excessive sweating. It is doctor created and doctor recommended. If you or a loved one are experiencing embarrassing sweating or odor, try Sweatblock. Save 20% with promo code Locked On at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. Also, thank you for making Locked On your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. All right, Jay, we've finished our ad reads. It's time to make a prediction on what's going to be a not fun Saturday for me on my side.
Yeah, man. Not fun Saturday is a really good, clean way to describe how many people feel this game should go down. The betting line, the over-under right now is set at 59.5. The Buckeyes are currently 38.5-point favorites. That's courtesy of our friends over at Bet Online. I say every single week, and I told this to Carter Byrd pre-show. I said, hey, when the first line comes out, that's the first line. Expected to move at least a point to a point and a half, possibly 2 points in the Buckeyes' favor prior to kickoff. This is being recorded in the middle of the week. So there's still time for that to move to 39 or even 39 and a half prior to kickoff. Of course, if a certain Buckeye player, Mayan Williams, is healthy and ruled healthy as announced prior to Saturday afternoon's game, well, yeah, that should probably be more to 39 and a half. I personally think this game will probably be a final score of, I want to say Northwestern scores 6 points.
I was in that boat too.
I want to say 59-6. And I said when the Buckeyes played the Hawkeyes that the Buckeyes had not held any team to single digits at all. Everybody has scored at least 10 points or more every game this year against Iowa. They even scored 10 points. And I was still a little annoyed at the way that they scored that touchdown, the scoop and score of the sack of C.J. Stroud, fumble, scoop, score, go to the end zone. I think this is the week. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, how November needs to be a statement type of month, statement games for the Buckeyes, and it starts this weekend. Ohio State's defense needs to really fix things because even though the Buckeyes won the game a week ago against Penn State, the defense didn't play up to standard, did not play up to par. This is a phenomenal time to get back to what the Buckeyes defense has done to most opponents all season long. 59-6. Yes, that does cover the over-under that has been set for our friends at Bet Online. That does also cover, if you are betting the Buckeyes minus 39.5, take that to the bank and cash it as well. I think both of those would be in favor of the Buckeyes this weekend.
Yeah, I'm very similar, actually. I was thinking about the score prediction pre-show, and I hadn't shared it with you yet, but I had Northwestern with 6 points as well. And I think I had Ohio State kind of in my head. How I had it mapped out was around 57. So I had it 57 to 6 as the final score. Yeah, I don't even know if the first 5 minutes will be a competitive 5 minutes or not. I think teams have had a lot of success jumping on Northwestern quickly. The issue is, you let Ohio State jump on you quickly, it's like getting hit by a train like for 60 straight minutes, and that's what I'm worried about. And so I've got it at 57-6 is what I have for the final score in this one.
Hey, that's pretty close, man. I don't think I've ever had a host at all.
Hey,
I've done shows with Locked On hosts. I've done shows with beat writers. I don't think I've done a columnist show at all, previewing a game. But I don't think I've ever been that close to somebody when they give their score prediction. I always try to break down how I get here. I think the Buckeyes kick one field goal, the rest are touchdowns. That's how you get to the 59 points. I think Northwestern scores a field goal. I'm going to be generous here on their opening drive of scripted plays. Everyone's, what's going on with the defense? Northwestern scored it's okay. It's not the end of the world. And then I do think Northwestern scores again. Latter part of the third, early part of the fourth, when the backups of the Ohio State's defense are on the field. I think they move the ball a little bit, get third and long, don't convert it, move the ball closer, don't convert it, go 4th and 5, and then they kick a field goal there once again. That's how they get their 6. I don't know why I do that every week, but it helps me kind of formulate my score prediction and what is actually going to happen. I've been close. I predicted the Buckeyes would score 45 last week. They scored 44. I thought Penn State was going to score 17. They scored, 30 or 31. So close at times with some, not both, but I think what I just said is realistic. I think it's as realistic as it can be because, Carter, you and I are on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. My score prediction last week for Northwestern did not come true. I thought that was going to be like a 13-6 game, and turned out to be a 33-13 game. So I'm kind of in the boat right now with 7 straight losses, 1-7, with a team of Ohio State's caliber coming to town, I don't know how much fight this Northwestern team could possibly have. And so I think that Ohio State can name a score, and I think it'll probably be in that mid to upper 50s if I had to guess.
Oh, boy, that'd be fun. So I got one more comment that we got to close up shop. I almost said 63, 66, 69 points, but I really have realized Ryan Day, especially in conference play, he pushes on the brakes and kind of goes caution with the offensive play calling. And with one of the running backs that scored when all the running backs played earlier in the year, with him out, I truly wonder if Ryan Day is going to try a different running back that hasn't played at all this year in the third and the fourth quarter, which is going to kind of hinder some of the running. Everyone wants the backup quarterbacks at Ohio State to play and throw the ball. I understand why Ryan Day does not allow them to do that. Now, if it's a Toledo or an Arkansas State and Ohio State's paying them $1.5 to $2 million to come to Columbus, I understand. But I also understand the respect that Ryan Day has for Big Ten opponents. Unless it's a team up north, he might want to put 100 on them. I hope that actually happens Thanksgiving weekend. I had to throw that shot out there. It happens every now and then.
I love it. That's good stuff. I do think that there's absolutely respect between both of these coaching staffs, especially the head coaches. And so I do think that things will get really, really ugly, but I don't think you're going to see 60 minutes of just pedal to the metal, full go Ohio State. I think at some point they will kind of pump those brakes and let it kind of ease out. Let the clock run out on this one. But yeah, it is going to be very, 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 very ugly, and I'm sure we will talk about it. We will text back and forth about it as it's going on this weekend.
Yes, we will. This has been the Locked On Crossover previewing the Ohio State game when the Ohio State Buckeyes play the Northwestern Wildcats at 12 noon Eastern this coming Saturday on ABC. That's Carter Byrd. He is the host of Locked On Northwestern. You can follow him at Carter Byrd 13. That is Byrd spelled with a Y. Catch his show, Locked On Northwestern, the same place you can catch Locked On Buckeyes, YouTube, the Odyssey app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your fine podcast. Subscribe to both podcasts on the YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. This Locked On crossover is complete. Tell your friends, check this crossover out. I don't know anywhere else you can get almost 40 minutes previewing this weekend's matchup between these two teams. 57-6, 59-6. That's our score predictions. What's yours? Fill up the YouTube comment section with your score prediction for this weekend's game. For Carter Byrd of Locked On Northwestern, I am Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes. We're out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day.